Morning guys, welcome back to another video, and more importantly welcome back to the workshop. Now in the last video, as I said, I was going to do a run of how-to videos. I've got plenty of maintenance jobs that I need to do on most of my bikes, so I thought I'd take you through some of those. So today I'm going to actually take the headset apart, give it a bit of a clean, a re-grease, and put it all back together. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is take the front wheel out, obviously loosen the stem and drop the forks out as well, and then we can actually get into the bearings of the headset and get those out, get those a bit of a clean. The first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to loosen off the top cap. Just take that out. At this point, don't worry that this won't change anything. Forks aren't going to suddenly drop out because the stem's still nice and tight. So I should remove those bolts, that bolt and spacer. Okay, so the next thing I need to do is to actually undo these bolts, clamping the stem to the steerer tube. Now on my headset, I know that there is a rubber seal on one of these caps here, which is also holding the fork up in place, so that I know that when I take the stem off, the fork's not just going to drop out. However, on your headset, it might be slightly different. So what I'd recommend doing is loosening the bolts, and as you take the stem off, keep hold of the forks and make sure that they don't just drop out, just in case. So let's grab my Allen key. This one, it's loose. That's another. Okay, and so that's now spinning. And what I can do is just pull that off, like so, and then just let that rest where the cables. And as I mentioned, obviously mine is still in the frame. Don't forget to take the headset spacers off. And basically what I do now on here is just gently pull the fork out, holding the frame underneath the head tube. Obviously got one of those coming off, like so. Let's see. Top tip that I probably should have mentioned before is have something, either have the bike close to the floor or have something underneath the fork so you can rest it on when you take it out. I've actually positioned a box underneath here which will allow me to just rest the forks neatly on it, just like that. So picking up the cap that fell off, we now have access to the headset bearings inside, and I can pull some of the stuff out, and some of it's a bit gunky. And one thing I will stress is, when you do this, remember what order, as you pull things out and pull bearings out, remember what order they came out, because the last thing you want is to put it all back together and realise that you've put something either in the wrong place or you've missed a piece out entirely. So another thing that I tend to do is basically take one piece out, clean it, and put it aside, but maybe space it out on your workbench in the order that it came in, so you can just literally go through methodically and put them back in the way they came out. So having said that, I'm going to get these out and give them a bit of a clean, and yeah, we'll just inspect the actual head tube and stuff, and we'll go from there. Okay, so as you can see, I've taken everything out and I've laid it in the order that I removed it. So obviously we took the top cap off first, headset spacers, and then the actual headset itself. Now on my bike it's fairly obvious, and the bigger bearing goes on the bottom of the headset, and the top one, the smaller one, sorry, is the top one. Now what I've done is I've cleaned it all up and inspected them, basically looking at the bearings and sort of feeling at them, basically look around them. This one's not so bad, and when I spin it in my fingers it's nice and smooth, so happy with that one. This one, however, a little bit of an oops. Hopefully you can see that on the inside if the camera focuses, and you can see that there's a bit of rust on the inside just here. So that's a bit of an oopsie. It looks like I had a bit of water ingress on that, and as a result the bearing itself feels, it's not bad, but it's going to need replacing sooner rather than later. So as a result, I'm going to order one of those now, and hopefully by the time it does really need replacing, I can I've got one ready to go. So what I'll do now is I'm going to clean them all up a bit more and re-grease them and put them back in the headset here, back in the cups. So I've also cleaned this out as well, same with the bottom one as well. So like I say, we'll re-grease them and put it all back together. Okay, so I've now gotten back to the point where I've re-greased everything. I've put the forks back in and used the headset to keep the forks in, and if I twist it now, it's nice and smooth, much nicer than it was. So now I'm just going to reinstall the headset spacers. So I have 3 in the bottom underneath the stem, and then I'm going to put the handlebars and stem back on. Making sure obviously that there's no movement or anything in the headset, so clamping it down. And then last but by no means least is I have a spacer and then my top cap, which I'm going to place on top and just gently tighten up. So some people get a little bit confused about the order in which you need to tighten the bolts up. So what we actually need to do is tighten the top cap up first, because what that does is it compresses the bearings and the headset. So it means then we don't have any play in it, because if you tighten the stem up first, all you're doing basically is squashing the spacer between, or in my case, the spacer between the top cap and the stem, because there's nothing, that stem's basically stopping you from pulling and compressing the actual bearings in the headset. So what I tend to do is I will tighten this up as much as I can, so finger tight. There you go. So tighten that up, so I've got no play, but I can still spin the bars. So now that I've tightened the top cap, I'm not even going to tighten the stem yet, because I actually need to make sure that the steering's straight and the handlebars are in line with the front wheel. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put the front wheel back in and put the bike on the ground, make sure there's no play in the headset, and then straighten everything up and tighten all the bolts. Okay, so I've got the front wheel back in, I've got the bike back on the ground, and what we're going to do is just a few quick checks before I straighten up the steering and tighten the stem bolts on here. So I'm just going to double check that this is tight, which it is. I'm happy with that. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the front brake and I'm going to make sure that the headset isn't knocking or anything like that. And I'm basically going to grab the front brake and hold the bike underneath the stem and at the top of the headset and the head tube, and basically going to rock the bike backwards and forwards. And if you can feel a knocking, then your headset's not tight enough. If you can't, then you're all good and you can go ahead and tighten up your stem. Now mine's not knocking or anything, that feels nice and solid. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my trusty torque wrench and I'm going to set it to the right torque levels. So on your stem, typically it'll say somewhere the recommended torque for the bolts. On mine it says 6 to 7 Newton meters, so I shall set that there. And then all I'm going to do is torque them up. There we go, that's one. There we go. We now have a nice, clean, smooth, greased headset ready to hit the trails. Hopefully you've enjoyed the video. Give it a like if you have, and if you'd like to see more content and more how-tos from us and from the channel, then click up here to see the previous video. If you want to see what life was like before lockdown and see what the Peak District looked like from behind the handlebars, click the video up here. And if you'd like to support and subscribe to the channel, then click down there. Cheers guys, bye.